All right, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. This is not going to be a fun video to do at all. This is pretty sad. I've been irresponsible. I fear that maybe I may have damaged irreparably the best Arcade1up in my collection, maybe even the best Arcade1up cabinet ever made, and that's the original Star Wars cabinet. Yeah, it functions, as far as, the game itself and the yoke, all that's fine, but there's another problem. It's pretty substantial. It's pretty massive. And it's right here. Unfortunately, it would appear that, for those of you who don't know, the arcade and my office, my streaming setup in the old house were two separate locations. It's funny enough, I took a lot of precautions in the basement to make sure that there was no issue with water damaging my Arcade1ups. I didn't take those precautions in the office because the office in our house, I didn't think it was going to be an issue. It was going to have a flooding problem. Unfortunately, we did. So we had an issue with our hot water heater right before we moved, right before we left. So I had to replace the hot water heater, and it just caused a bunch of damage to my office, my wife's office, and my son's room. We were able to get all that water up. We reacted pretty quickly to it, and I thought we had fixed the problem. And this arcade was behind me as I, streaming in the other location. And it was far away from the location. Well, at least I thought it was pretty far away from the hot water heater. But it turns out, I guess I got some moisture at some point. It just made its way through the padding and the carpet probably and got behind there, and I just couldn't get to it in time. And we have some substantial swelling on this back panel on the riser. So could it have been worse? Yeah, but this is not good when you're talking about a cabinet you're really trying to keep intact. A cabinet that, while they've reproduced one very similar, it's not the same cabinet. The riser is not going to be the same at all. The artwork is completely different. Now, if we're going to find a good side, a bright spot, this is the panel on the back. So if I did replace this with just like a stock black panel off of like a stock riser, I could get away with it, but it's not going to be original at all. You're going to see you've got this gray T molding, the gray T molding, which has never been put on any other Arcade1up, I believe. So it's not going to be easy to mimic this or replicate this, even if I just wanted to keep the back solid black. But this is a pretty good issue. Now that you can see the problem with MDF is if you get any water on MDF at all, it just soaks it up like a sponge. And then it causes these graphics here to completely just delaminate. It looks really, really bad. What's funny is I think it's just this back piece. It's not the side pieces from what I can tell. I can't really see any swelling back here on these side panels. And what's even a little more odd is that this panel, the support panel in the middle, doesn't have any T molding. It's just raw MDF right here all exposed. So if I was going to get any water on this, I would have assumed it would have affected this first because there's no protection here at all. It's just raw MDF. There's no melamine. There's no T molding or nothing, edge banding. I think this is actually edge banding, not T molding. So I don't know. So what do you do? What do you do? I mean, there's no way to candy coat this. This is devalue the cabinet. So there's a couple things I can do. I can try to find an original riser somewhere, but that's going to be a little harder to find. One thing that's going to be a little easier to find is the seat, the sit-down seat. So I could just make this a sit-down version, but not only does that look goofy, it's just not comfortable. This is definitely the way I want to go. This is definitely the way that I want to play the game, is in the stand-up version. So what do? I've got a couple options. For $600, I can get the re-released cabinet. It's going to look a little different. It looks good, but I like this version better. I like the contrasting color of the edge banding here, the blue and then the gray on the bottom. I like that it's different. It doesn't blend in. The new ones definitely do blend in on the side. You've got the black edge banding. It does come with a molded coin door, which I do like a lot. I was never going to modify this. I was going to keep this original. I was going to keep this stock, which is why this upsets me so much. So I can try to find another riser, stock. It's got to be stock. It can't be some knockoff. I got to find a stock riser. Good luck there. I could go for the seat and make it a sit-down version, but I don't like the sit-down versions at all. And then, by the way, I got the sit-down version right now. It's called a stool. So the stool would be absolutely useless. Um, you know, I want to fix this. I could guess I could get the other version, but then there's a big part of me that thinks they're going to come out with an XL version, which would render both of these options kind of kind of mute. The only reason I really wanted to hang on to this is because it was the first one. It was the first time that they, in my opinion, took a cabinet and knocked it out of the park. They had to make some compromises, obviously, with the 17-inch monitor and the plastic yoke, but it's just enough. Uh, they made it just good enough to where it was doable. Definitely the best looking cabinet, in my collection. So sadly, this thing is ruined. Now it's not catastrophic. If you put this back together, no one's going to notice it, but I'm going to know it's back there. I'm going to notice it. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do for right now. I'm not going to throw the cab away. That would be ridiculous. But I think I am going to have to replace this at some point, but I'm not going to replace it with that re-release version. I don't think. I think I've got enough patience in me. I can wait for the XL version. I hope they're coming out with that. I can't imagine a better candidate for an XL. I can't imagine a better candidate for a Pro. If the Pro comes out, if that's $1,000, what do I do then? If it's just these 3 games, I don't know that I'll pull the trigger. Now, a Pro version of the trilogy, that's a different story. So yeah, I'm really sad about this. It's really bumming me out. You can see how the black melamine is actually, look at this, just flaked right off. I hate to tear this apart, but look, it's just coming right off. It's really just sad. And this is the downside of using this MDF. It's the downside of not having some kind of a tall plastic spacer on these risers. It's the downside of not having a plastic riser. If you had a plastic riser, some kind of thick piece of plastic, maybe a half-inch thick, it might have saved me. But this also brings to question, bears the question when you're talking about a deluxe cabinet. You're not going to have a riser to replace. You're going to have a whole side panel to replace. This is the big problem I have with the deluxes. If it was bigger like an XL, I would take the chance. But because it's not bigger, I don't feel like taking the chance. Also, this is something to consider too. Water damage will destroy your entire side panel. What are you going to do then? It's going to be a lot harder to find a replacement side panel or that bottom half of a side panel than it is to replace just a riser or focus on the riser, maybe swap out a different color, even just fabricate a different back panel. It makes everything a little more complicated when you're talking about those luxe cabinets. So there's pluses and minuses either way you go. This is really sad. This is disappointing. And there's no way that I can turn around and resell this for a premium price or even a competitive price like $500. There's just no way. I can't do that in good conscience. It's not going to be all stock. It's not going to be original. So I guess stay tuned to the channel to decide what do I do with this. Maybe I would send this off to B and over there in Kong's R Us and have him mod it for me. But for right now, we're going to leave it the way it is. But I have to address this sooner rather than later because I know the more times I move this, the more this decal, this artwork is just going to flake off, and it's just going to look worse and worse and worse. Anyway, thank you so much for stopping by, checking out the channel, and listen to my complaints, crying with me because this is definitely something to cry about.